We're bringing in Tim and Arun. We're going to talk a little bit of NBA playoffs. We do have this exciting Game 7. Tim, I know you sometimes watch hockey. Are you watching the Game 7?
Yeah, I just saw Edmonton score it, so
Yeah.
shout out to Adrian for
And
getting on the board.
Adrian's been in chat, which is kind of cool. So he's live on Twitch with us, so in chat. So I appreciate him for watching alongside with us. So Arun, you rated in. What were you playing tonight?
I was playing StarCraft, but I do that anyways, I think. So it's just my friend thinks it's funny, so we record.
Oh, nice. You're having a little bit of static with your mic. I don't know
Oh,
feedback.
is that
Not Mike.
better or worse? Sort of same.
Same.
Let me change the mics. I'll be back.
Okay, sounds good. Um, but yeah, we'll get more thoughts on him in this. So it's been some crazy. There's a great shot on this power play here, but a even better save by the goalie to keep it a 1-0 game. But Tim, there's been some really exciting things in the world of the NBA. I'm gonna go through all the different series here real fast, and then get your thoughts on that. Uh,
Definitely.
and then I don't know, did you ever get to check some of the highlights out of the Defenders game, or did you?
No, I just saw they lost and got eliminated, so
Yeah, well, we can
I
talk
didn't I didn't
about.
see
Yeah,
much.
go back and watch. No, that's fine. We'll get Champ's thoughts about that right after our segment, but we will have the big announcement about the potential meetup if anybody wants to go to the game.
Oh
Tickets
yeah,
probably sales are plummeting now.
definitely. Yeah,
So,
bargain
uh,
bin pricing.
so if I could get them for $20 before they were eliminated, I am sure you can get them for that price or less now. Um, but we'll talk about that. But maybe we can also talk a little Orioles before you leave as well, and talk some Nats with Arun. Uh,
Sounds good.
and we can, because I know that Champ hasn't been watching the baseball, so maybe we'll talk with you guys about some of that after we talk the NBA. So let's go back into the last week of the NBA, the bracket. So it was Boston versus Cleveland. Boston ended up winning that series 4-1. And then the other series went seven in a very exciting game where just unfortunately just attrition for Knicks fans just kind of did them in. Like they just ran out of players and they ended up losing that series, which in some ways I think will make for a better series in the next one. I just don't think that a shorthanded Knicks was going to be able to beat Boston.
Nah, it would have been 5 games probably max.
Yeah, for sure. Arun, let's do a mic check. How are you doing?
Good,
Uh,
better.
There we
way,
go.
yeah, so much better. All
That's
right,
weird.
awesome. All right, so I'll start off with you, Arun. Let's talk about this Boston Cleveland series. At one point, Cleveland looked like they were going to maybe make a series of it, but then just Boston pulled away at the end and they just showed their dominance. What were some of your thoughts on this series?
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell missed the end of this series. Marcus Morris had a great game in Game 5, but the Celtics were just simply a much better team, and they look. It looks like no matter who they played, they would have been the favorites. Even like with OG going out, I think they should probably take care of the Pacers. But great series by the Celtics, and they don't even have Porzingis back, and they steamroll both of their opponents so far.
Yeah. So I saw a stat that all four remaining teams have a former Wizard on it. So the streak of 8 years will continue. That a former Wizard will win a championship this year, which I thought was kind of wild. So interesting to see
It's
what.
all because of them too. Nobody else.
Exactly.
Porzingis really key.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just thinking of him as the great example that people are giving on that team, and he's like not even playing. But he would get a ring for sure if they won. So Tim, what are some of your thoughts on that Boston Cleveland series?
Cleveland also didn't have Levert the last game, so that hurt them. But really, it was a typical Boston series where they dominated most of the time, but they had one terrible home game where they just got completely blown out and really embarrassed themselves in front of the home crowd. But they play so great on the road, and that's been happening for a couple years now. So they make up for that one stinker at home and seem to win the majority of their road games and really feed off the road crowd. So again, They were undefeated in this series on the road, so I think that's really going to serve them well moving forward. And like Arun was saying, they don't really need Porzingis now. I think even to beat Indiana, they probably don't need him, but I do agree that Indiana is a much harder opponent because, like you said, New York was really injured and barely got through that series. So it's going to be a bigger competition for them, but they're clearly the best team right now in the league, and they just have looked great so far. Besides, one early home loss, both
Right.
series.
So just a scoring update. Bouchard just scored for Edmonton. It's pretty crazy. It's the sixth goal of the postseason this year, 13th career from a defensive player. So they take a 2-0 lead. They've outshot Vancouver. We're now at 13:30 left in the second period. They outscored them or outshot them 23-4. It's just wild to me. It's just like yeah, some people don't get 23 in a game, and the other team only has four, and like you'd expect them to have double that. So anyway, it's just a massive shot disparity there. But yeah, let's get into this Knicks game. And I feel bad for Knicks fans just because I don't know, just they put their heart and soul into this season and they thought they were making progression and put together some incredible games even with major stars out and uh, and they're a young team and they're gelling, so hopefully they can keep all of them together and they can make a run at it next year. But Arun, just the Knicks were such a big storyline of this playoffs and they just couldn't get it done in the end. Just the injuries did them in.
Yeah, game 3 was probably the turning point when they didn't get that game when Nemhart made that 3, and I think the Pacers, they took the gas off a little bit in game 5 and they got blown out, but I think they got a stern talking to, and then game 6 and then game 7, they were just, like, completely on fire. I think they shot, like, 80% from the field or close to that and, like, 60% or something crazy from 3 at one point in the game. Halliburton, he was like 5 of 6, started the game 5 of 6 from 3-point range. I think the defense for the Knicks kind of suffered because they tried to bring OG Anunoby back, and he wasn't moving that well. And Josh Hart also was a little bit out of his rotations, and Brunson looked off even before that. And I think even Hartenstein suffered some kind of injury during the game because he wasn't contesting shots either. And even Dante DiVincenzo, he scored 38 points. He was limping in the fourth quarter. And Brunson, he broke his hand, non-shooting hand. So it's that kind of season for the Knicks. Uh, but yeah, at some point it was like, as you guys mentioned, that the Celtics were just going to destroy this Knicks team as it currently stands. But it doesn't give me that much faith in the Pacers that they weren't able to just steamroll the Knicks like they got blown out by this Knicks team in one game, but I guess Brunson's capable of doing that. But I think the Celtics, I mean, yeah, I guess the Knicks, their season was really great. They had 50 wins. The Wizards haven't done that since we've been alive. So really good season for them, and maybe they come back with some moves because they have their draft picks, and hopefully, like Randall or somebody, they make a move, and maybe they'll be back in this position going forward.
Yeah, I was very impressed, and I found myself like rooting for them. And yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where that team goes from here, for sure. That makes this Boston Pacers game. I mean, Boston on paper is a better team, but people keep counting this Pacers team out, and they keep on surprising people. I know the midseason tournament, they had a pretty good showing there, but ultimately, didn't win it all. But I don't know. I think that they keep on surprising people throughout this whole season. Tim, what are some of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think they have a chance against Boston until Porzingis comes back because they have good bigs. They have Turner and even their forwards have a lot of size. So I think without Porzingis, it's going to be tougher Boston to match up down low. And Indiana did great in the paint, especially in their wins. Partially because the Knicks had their backup center out, Robinson. And I think a lot of people didn't really, I mean, obviously a lot of people blame Tibbs because he always plays his starters a lot. You know, if you want to play devil's advocate against the strategy, you could say all the over usage led to those injuries. But it's really more than that. Indiana's bench is so deep. Their second five unit is really strong. And they played great against the Knicks. They always destroyed the Knicks in bench points. So I think Boston will win the series, but if Porzingis can't come back until after game like 3 or 4, maybe Indiana could get a little lead and make it interesting. They score a lot of points. They are tough to defend, so Boston might struggle on defense at least.
Yeah. It's hard to know what Pacers team you're going to get because they're very efficient, yeah, at times, and I'm just really interested to see how Boston's defense deals with some of that. Arun, what are your thoughts on the matchup?
Yeah, I think the Pacers they beat the Bucks team without Giannis and Dame Lillard went out, and then as we alluded to, the Knicks had a lot of injuries. I guess the Celtics also have had some. They faced opponents with injuries, but they were blowing out their opponents, all their wins in like by 20. They had a couple games where they lost by a lot, but I think Derek White really surprised me. He's actually sometimes he's been the best player on the Celtics, and he's the only player in the starting lineup on the Celtics that hasn't been to the All Star game, which is kind of crazy. So, with even Porzingis out, they have Tatum, Brown, and Drew Holiday, and I think Holiday will be a much better defender than Dante DiVincenzo or Miles McBride. And I think the lack of size for the Knicks, like that was probably what made the Pacers struggle defending the boards against the Knicks even at times. So I don't know, like the pace is probably the key, but I think the the Celtics are kind of I think the Pacers beat them in the in-season tournament or something like in one of the games. So I think the Celtics are probably be a little bit motivated, and I think they they probably should. I think the longest series could go to the 6, but I think I think the Celtics haven't been really tested, but I think they'll beat this Pacers team who like it's one of the easiest roads I think a team has had to the like Eastern Conference Finals that I can remember because the Knicks were banged up and no Giannis and Lillard got injured, so it's kind of and the Bucks did beat the Pacers without Lillard and Giannis, so it was like kind of crazy that even happened. So Halliburton is playing well, so that's something that they can go in, but I still think the Celtics are heavy favorites.
Yeah, it makes sense. Right now, I was trying to see if I could pull up right now, Boston is favored by 9.5 in game one, there. All right, let's go to the other side of the bracket. We'll talk about well, I mean, both are kind of surprising, but, Dallas OKC, everyone thought OKC was the team to beat in the West. They've been playing so well and they just dominated the first round. But Dallas was able to come in and take that series 4 games to 2. I'll start off with you, Tim. What are some of your thoughts on that one?
I agree with you. I think in terms of OKC, I mean, obviously they're the higher seed. They had home court. A lot of people picked them to win, but I just think Dallas was able to win a very close series because they have so much more playoff experience. I know Luka hasn't won a championship, but he's made the playoffs, I believe, every season and several years in a row. Plus, Kyrie is a champion, and they have a lot of other pieces on the roster with playoff experience. So I just think having that experience, that they're able to win games on the road in a hostile environment. And then that game 6 was great. It was very back and forth. It really came down to the wire. I don't know if you guys saw it. There was like a foul call at the end that basically decided it, where OKC fouled Dallas. And it was reviewed, and I didn't really think it was much of a foul, but it was one of those situations where you can't overturn it. But it kind of stinks for OKC fans to lose like that on like a very light foul that was reviewed that decided it. But Dallas deserved it, and they have a great crowd. And it is kind of cool for their city. They're the only, I think, yeah, they're the only city with two teams in the conference finals in the same city and building. So, um, almost New York, not quite, but it is cool to see one city that gets to basically have a playoff game every night for another week or two, I guess, at least.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get Arun or get Adrian to join us for a crossover segment here. So I'm very excited about that. Gonna have him give his thoughts on this Edmonton Vancouver game a little bit later after we do our segment with Champ. Arun, what are your thoughts on this Dallas OKC game?
Yeah, I kind of agree with all of you guys that I thought Dallas was gonna win. I don't know. I guess like OKC, they were the better regular season team, but it just felt like some of the guys like Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren, they were kind of like they took like kind of a backseat to guys like Luca and Kyrie, and it seems like PJ Washington really came through for the Mavericks and Derek Jones Jr. Whereas like I don't, other than SGA, I don't think anyone was really that consistent for the Thunder. And Lively was really great in Game 6. He was plus 26. Gafford had other good games in the series, but he was minus 25, which is kind of crazy. Um, I think overall, like the people are saying, "Oh, the Wizards shouldn't have given up Gafford," but I don't really think there was a point of him being in the Wizards uniform. And they got a first round draft pick. Not the it'll still be like in the early 20s, so it's not that bad of a first round draft pick. So I think overall it'll work out for the Wizards. And Rashawn Holmes played pretty well for the Wizards. It just doesn't really matter what Gafford
Well,
did
Gafford
or
also
what.
just was never going to play that great in our system, like what we're trying to do here. Like, and I think he can flourish in that one. And
Yeah, he's
so,
not a great rebounder, and we need help on the boards, if anything.
right,
Or we just need help tanking for next year, especially. This draft was pretty bad, but we still need to take going forward.
even more, yeah. So it's just going to be interesting because he wasn't going to fit in our plans for the next 2 to 3 years. So I'm happy that we got some assets for him and let him do
Kind of
well.
the rest of the league, they kind of missed out on Gafford. I think like the Thunder actually helped the Mavericks get Gafford, which was kind of hilarious because they got the Mavericks traded unprotected pick swap in 2029, but the Thunder gave the Mavericks a first round pick, which went to the Wizards. So they could have had Gafford, and that even if they just put Gafford on the bench, I think that might have just swung the series enough in the Thunder's favor because Gafford had a couple good games in the series, and but 2 out of 3 years for the Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals, I don't. They might have even gotten there without him. Luca and the crazy stat was Kyrie's never lost a closeout game. He was like 10-0, and which is like a crazy stat because
Wow.
normally people are like put their like they get like more defensive. Like the Thunder probably because they would have won that game because they're playing with some desperation. But the 3 wins against Golden State when they were up 3 or 1 was Kyrie's part of his resume. Those all don't count except Game 7 where he made that huge shot. Even though it was pretty bad in the first half, it's Kyrie's good and when he's closing out, which is a pretty crazy stat. I thought.
Yeah, that is wild. I mean, that's so much more clutch than like someone like LeBron, like I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
Well, a lot of those were
it's
with
not.
LeBron, so
it's
I
true,
guess
but
he was undefeated because I
yeah,
don't remember the last closeout. I guess he had one with the Nets. Most of those did happen with LeBron, I think.
yeah. But still, like to be undefeated though is still impressive. Anyway, the other game, Minnesota versus or other series, sorry, versus Denver. Minnesota kept on surprising me throughout, but then when it went to 7, I thought that the Nuggets were going to take it. But Tim, what are some of your thoughts on that one?
Well, yeah, right. I mean, crazy comeback. The Nuggets really dominated the first half. It was an extremely low scoring game, but it was the best, I guess, Game 7 comeback in playoff history, or at least Game
Wait,
7
it
history.
says
Yeah,
in Game 7 the last 25 years.
25 years. Okay, yeah, and
Oh,
um,
oh,
I love it for Minnesota because they haven't been to the conference finals in 20 years since Kevin Garnett.
yeah.
And that's why Barkley and the crew were all making fun of, like, I haven't been to Minnesota for years. Like, what is even there to do? And Because they're not used to big games in Minneapolis, but I love it for the Minnesota fans because they've been starving for success, and their coach is injured and like can barely walk around. So it's kind of a good story. And for the Nuggets, it's really disappointing to blow that game and blow a 3-2 lead. I really, they had definitely had a chance to repeat this year, but it's hard when you're a mark team and um the Nuggets even said post game that they felt like Minnesota was a bad matchup for them and really difficult for them to beat. And I think it was just because Minnesota is so big, and they have great defenders down low because they have Gobert and they also have Cat and Edwards and a bunch of other long guys that defend pretty well. So it was just amazing defense by the T Wolves in the second half. They were smothering, and it just looked like Denver couldn't get anything going. I mean, none of their role players could score. And Minnesota really crushed them in game 6. So I think that gave them a ton of confidence going on to the road game 7. But they really did not shoot the ball well in the first half. But Denver just kind of let them stay within striking distance because Denver didn't score a ton either in the first half. I mean, they could have been up by maybe 20 plus points because they did hold Minnesota down, but Minnesota got hot. Edwards was bad early, but he really picked it up. A lot of great like steals and athletic plays down the stretch. And I think everyone's excited for Minnesota because they're a team on the rise, and it's another one of the teams still left that has never won or hasn't won in a while. So that's kind of cool. Minnesota and Indiana have never won it, so those are good stories. But this was the better of the game sevens, and I think Minnesota has a really good chance in the next round to go on.
Yeah. Arun, what are some of your thoughts?
This is like one of the most back and forth series that I think I can ever remember because like first the Timberwolves were up 2-0, then the Nuggets were up, then they came back. Then the Timberwolves somehow pulled out like a win and game like just to get the third win for them, and then the Nuggets were up by 20 points at one point in the game, and then the Nuggets kind of just ran out of gas. I think the lack of the Nuggets bench, like, kind of, I mean, it did hurt them because they didn't have Bruce Brown this series, but they said they were going to trust the young players. But guys like Peyton Watson and Holiday actually played like a little bit. When he played, they were plus 10. But Jokic was missing threes. Nobody else was really stepping up. I think Porter, he scored 23 points per game against the Lakers in that series, and this series he scored like 11 points per game, and I don't think he even got double digits in this game. But that's a testament to the Timberwolves defense. I think they held like Beal to 9 points in game 4 or something crazy. So just a great defense by the Timberwolves. Some crazy shots too that they made, like the Rudy Gobert, like a crazy fadeaway turnaround. And Reggie Miller said one of the moves he did was like Michael Jordan, which probably everyone started laughing at Reggie Miller, but it was just like the Timberwolves. And then Anthony Edwards hit a really clutch three, and he was 6 of 24, but he still came through in like big moments and had a big turnover. So good win for the Timberwolves, and I don't. I was like going to be surprised either way, but a really great series.
Yeah. Uh I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on the Halliburton hoodie? I feel like I have to talk about it just because it's so wild. That he would wear it after people didn't see it. Got the choking Reggie Miller on his hoodie. I thought it was hilarious. I know Knicks fans are very upset about it. Uh, I just the amount of petty he had to have it on standby waiting, for them to win. I just kind of love. But Tim, what are your thoughts on it?
I'd like to know if he packed backup clothes for a loss, but because he's not going to wear that, obviously, if they lose by 21 or whatever.
Right.
I think it's great. Obviously, Knicks fans don't, but they do have a great playoff rivalry going back to Reggie Miller, who also got involved, and apparently, I guess some of the Knicks players talked trash to him during the series because he called some of the games. But it's now 5-3 Indiana in the playoffs, so they have bragging rights right now. But I do think the Knicks are going to be ready for them next year. And if they do play next year in the playoffs and the Knicks are healthy, I think they're going to be very, very motivated. So it's nice. Maybe it's like a rivalry coming back because both those teams are pretty young and should be making the playoffs for a few years in a row now. But I like it. I didn't think it would, I don't know if he said anything or it was literally just he wore the hoodie and it was kind of subtle, but I don't really think it's over the line just because it is kind of a historical beef. It wasn't like he invented it and like printed the sweatshirt himself. Well, I guess he did, but he didn't invent the meme, like the choking
I think
thing.
he bought it though, right? I don't think it was.
Oh, okay, so it exists probably for like Indiana fans.
Yeah, probably.
He
I'm
didn't go to like Etsy and make it.
trying to see real quickly if I can. I'm gonna share a screen real fast, just so
It's
people
definitely
who
for
are,
sale now. That's for damn sure.
yeah, for 100% sure. So here we
Yeah.
go. Let me see if I get this. Yeah, there you go. You can see right there. You got the choking. I love the giant red arrow.
Yeah, just in case you missed it.
Just in case you miss it. But yeah, so I thought I would share it just because. Oh my god, I laughed so hard. Arun, what are some of your takeaways on it?
It's kind of like the Knicks are kind of like really short-handed, so it's not like I guess he probably like he's like, well, Brunson's it. I don't know. It's like feels like stepping on like a handicapped person, kind of. It is funny, but it would have been more funny if like the Knicks were healthy, kind of thing. Because this game was, I mean, turns out the series was just like kind of lopsided. I was kind of wondering if the Wizards could beat this Knicks team after all the injuries they suffered. If they had like no Brunson, it's just pretty bad. Like I think Brunson looked really banged up, and Hardenstein was banged. It's just I don't know. It's kind of funny that they had a throwback. I think that the Reggie Miller Knicks thing because the teams were that was like kind of more real rivalry. This was just like if like Halliburton got injured and Brunson wore like Reggie Miller like flopping or something, it'd kind of be like I don't think I would approve of that either. So it's kind of just like it is what it is, and I feel like the Pacers kind of have to have a competitive series against the Celtics, or they'll kind of look like a clown.
Yeah. So and
Free
this
zip now. But
this
sorry if I
Yeah, no, no, I was about to talk about it. So yeah, it's Adrian's happy. So they were on the power play. They shot it wide, which I couldn't tell if it was intentionally shot wide. It didn't look like it was, but it caromed off the end board right to the player on the opposite side. He was able to gather it just barely and just flick it up and top, corner goal. Yeah, they're up 3-0 here. Outshot them 27-12 with now under 4 minutes left in the second period. Big time lead right here. We'll see if they can hold on to it. Vancouver is just not putting up enough shots for them to have a real shot in this game. Ooh, right there. They almost scored though. It just trickled wide. Um, so yeah, let's talk about we've kind of talked about the Eastern one before, but Dallas versus Minnesota. What are you guys thoughts going into that series? Who do you have winning it? I'll start off with you, Tim.
I'll take Minnesota. I mean, I think Arun said this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas won because they've been to the Western Finals recently. They have a lot of playoff experience, and Luka wants to break through. He's got a good supporting cast. Just I feel like Minnesota is just it kind of feels like their year because I feel like that comeback in game 7 and crushing Denver in game 6, it's going to give them a lot of confidence. And they are at home. They do have home court. I think, although it didn't matter last series because the road team won most of the games, I do think in this series it's going to matter a lot for both teams. And they do have home court advantage, so I will take them. But I think it's going to go long. I could definitely see a 7-game series again because I don't think either team is going to lay down. And you have a lot of superstars. I think Luka versus Edwards is going to be great. And then, Minnesota probably has the size advantage, but you have to have players like Cat score for Minnesota to win. They need some extra scoring, so that's going to be key, because I think Dallas will have, like, Luka and Kyrie will be pretty consistent.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited about this series. I don't really know who I want to win. I kind of want Dallas. I don't know. I just think that it'd be a really interesting story for Luca, but I don't know. It's just that story for the Timberwolves, like the underdog story is also a really exciting one as well. So, Arun, what are some of your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm not. I guess I slightly favor the Timberwolves, but I think this series is going to be up in the air more or less because, like, I feel like Dallas has also been to the conference finals before, and it's kind of a weird matchup. I'll say that Luka did not look really healthy, and the Mavericks have a lot more size, especially I think Kleba is injured. But I feel like the Mavericks also have like guys that can come off the bench, like um, Tim Hardaway or Derrick Jones Jr. or whoever they decide to start. Um, but I think the Timberwolves just have a lot of size. They have like Nas Reed coming off the bench and just Cat and Kyle Anderson. Rudy Gobert is obviously really big. It'll be interesting to see if Gafford and Derek Lively was great in the last series. So it'll be interesting to see if he can step up. I think Luca and paper, he could be the best player in the series, like as good as Anthony Edwards is. But I think the Timberwolves are slightly deeper, so I slightly favored them, and they have home court, as Tim said. But it could also be like a crazy series with like a couple I like the shot makers for Dallas better as far as like kicking out to PJ Washington. But like Luka doesn't looks kind of banged up, and Kyrie's also. I think he'll be better than Jamal Murray was throughout the last series. So it'll definitely be an interesting series.
That's the end of the second period. Edmonton takes a 3-0 lead into the third period of a decisive Game 7 for the Battle of Canada to decide who will be in the Western Conference Finals. So, yeah, 3-0 on the road. We'll have Adrian join us in a little bit. We do have a couple of sports that we're going to talk about first. We'll also bring back Gil in a little bit as well. I do want to just quickly mention, I'm not going to throw up the graphics. We're going to do it really fast. The Nats, after winning a rain-delayed game 6-3 to start last week, they went on to lose the next 5 games of the week, including the other 2 games in Chicago, and then all 3 games in Philadelphia this weekend. The scores, they won 6-3, then they lost 4-0, 2-0, 4-2, 4-3, 11-5. But today in Minnesota, or no, sorry, Minnesota came to town. It was a home game for Washington back from that road trip, and they won 12-3 in their game. So the Twins are obviously struggling, but like that's a huge win for them to get off that big losing streak. They'll have 2 more games against Minnesota. One at 6:45 tomorrow on Tuesday, one at 1:05 on Wednesday, and then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so they have Thursday off. They will have a series at home versus Seattle. 6:45 on the Friday game, 4:05 on the Saturday, and 1:35 on the Sunday. Arun and Tim, have you been following any baseball at all? I know that you're an Orioles fan. Tim, I'm going to go to in a second as well.
Yeah, I will say just general thoughts about the Nats. I've been to 2 games this year, and they're definitely better than people thought they would be. I mean, clearly they have a losing record again, but they have a lot of young talent, and their pitching has been pretty good until this week. I saw them play against the Orioles too, and they split, and they could have won both games really. So you have to be excited with the progress. I mean, they are better than predictions, but I will say this week, obviously a big setback, not just in the standings, but to get shut out twice in a row at the White Sox was particularly bad, just because the White Sox are one of the worst teams in baseball, and that's tough. You definitely want to win 2 out of 3 in that series, and like score more runs. So
They getting
maybe
swept by a divisional opponent is always bad, especially a team that you're trying to chase.
yeah. I mean, I don't think realistically anyone's expecting them to catch the Braves or Phillies. But it is nice that they were ahead of the Marlins and the Mets for a bit at least. So that and everyone wants them to bring up. I'm blanking
James
on the
Wood.
name of the prospect.
James Wood, yeah.
Yeah, so everyone's excited about that. And I think when he does get called up, that'll probably spike interest for the rest of the season.
Yeah, so the Orioles on the other side of it, they lost 3-2 to Toronto, had a game postponed due to rain, and they won their Wednesday game 3-2. So they split that series, and then against Seattle, a team that Washington's about to face, they beat Seattle 9-2, lost 4-3. I think that game was one that was on television, and then they won 6-3 on Sunday. But what are your thoughts on the up and down Orioles?
Their record's still really good. I mean, they're like 13 games over 500, so definitely a strong start. And they're on pace to win a lot of games. Just the Yankees have been on fire. They finally lost tonight, but they have fallen to 2 games back in second place. So still tied in the loss column because they had a bunch of rain delays, but um you do want them to play a little bit better just because the Yankees have been great. But you can't really complain about the record, and they're fairly healthy too, which is nice. And then they did lose tonight, but they have a road trip this week to St. Louis and Chicago White Sox. Both teams not very good, so hopefully they'll step it up and win most of those games.
Yeah, St. Louis is on my shit list right now. We're gonna use those as my segue in a second. But yeah, well, they kind of knocked the Defenders out of the playoffs this weekend as well. But yeah, they did just lose that game 6-3. Unfortunately, they found themselves on a 5-0 hole, but Baltimore did battle back to make it 5-3 at one point, and then uh, come back to make it 6-3 in that one. So. Disappointing for sure. Arun, I'm gonna let you give your final thoughts. I'm gonna keep Tim on to talk Defenders. Unless did you watch the Defenders game? If you did, you can. Yeah,
No, I didn't watch.
that's fine. And but Arun, I really appreciate you helping break down the NBA playoffs and all the different stuff that we talk weekly. And we'll have you back on in 2 weeks, hopefully for the last show of the spring season.
Sure, thanks for having me on. And I just want to say that the week I started Twitch streaming, Gilbert Arenas started streaming video games, so he's following my footsteps.
Oh wow, I didn't know that Gil made it over here. Everyone's coming over. I
He's streaming on YouTube though, but he's like
uh
he's still like because he doesn't know about Twitch, I guess apparently.
yeah, why
But
would you
he plays
stream
Fortnite
video
like
games?
Adrian.
Yeah, no, why would you stream video games over on YouTube? That's stupid. Anyway, yeah, I mean, like this is like I love that we talk on Twitch and we do this show on Twitch, but it's a gaming platform. Like it's what it was built for.
I think he's just experimenting, but I think maybe eventually he'll a couple of years from now I might find out
It's
about
just there's
Twitch.
more of a revenue stream on Twitch. That's why I'm like, that doesn't seem
No,
like
no,
a
but he only started video game streaming like 2 days ago as a joke. He was playing with Brandon Jennings and Rashad McCants,
nice.
and
Well,
he was getting destroyed mostly.
that's kind of awesome. So,
But he did win in this Fortnite game, which is kind of hilarious. I
also,
saw.
I'm sorry. I need to chime in on this. Streaming on YouTube gaming has actually been very successful. There have been some very big Twitch streamers who switched to YouTube and have been as equally successful, if not more successful, on YouTube streaming than on Twitch streaming.
I
So
just hate the
YouTube has
chat.
turned into a gaming streaming
Yeah, I know
platform.
one gaming streamer does like both. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of
Tim
people are doing multi-streaming now that you're allowed to, and then you can also like live stream to Kick and other things at the same
Or like he does like one Wednesday, but then he does Twitch every like most of the other days. But he still says
But it's
he
cool
doesn't
that
like
Twitch
the
Twitch
interface
allows
is
you to
different.
or a lot of them all allow you to stream on all of them at once. I was thinking about being on YouTube and on Kick and doing all of it at once. It's just I already have to follow a Facebook chat and a Twitch chat and talk to you guys. Like that's a lot. Like I don't know if I could follow 2 more chats. Like I don't know how people do that. And I think that
3
most of the people,
monitors or something crazy.
well, I don't think that most people that are like interviewing people are on multiple platforms at once. Most of it's like video games and they have like a condensed chat that has all of them in one or something. Like I think it'd be too hard to like interview people and keep up with 4 chats. I don't know
Well, if you're
how.
already have like a crazy chat, then it might not even matter. If you have like a
Yeah,
bazillion
that's
people
true.
talking,
Yeah, if you're just gonna ignore chat, then that's a different.
yeah, they just
Yeah.
normally ignore chat.
Exactly. So that's also a possibility. But but yeah, so we will Arun, we'll definitely catch you in 2 weeks, and then we'll talk to Champ and Tim about the unfortunate defenders game here. But Arun, any final thoughts before I let you go?
That was it. No RG3 news, so I'll keep you guys posted if I
He
see
was
anything.
fired. I was like waiting
Oh
for
yeah,
you.
that. I guess I broke that last week in the chat. He was not I guess he's demoted. He's fired from. He's still on ESPN, but yeah.
Nah, Arun, you put something in my chat when I was streaming my podcast about RG3.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I was gonna say
the
we
number
haven't
one
had the
wrestler.
announcement
Yeah,
on
yeah.
here.
But that was for your podcast only. People have to tune
Oh
in
yeah,
for your
it was
podcast.
exclusive RG3. Yeah, of course. But for people that don't know, Arun's been giving us RG3 news
That's
on his
wrestling
channel
related, so
for like
nothing.
5 years. Or actually longer. I mean, what year? 20? Yeah, it's like the whole time probably.
I like how you think there's people that don't know about it yet. Everybody knows.
Everybody knows. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe there's somebody on Twitch that hasn't like followed from the beginning. But that's very true. But
Very
Arun, I
bad day. I'm
appreciate
gonna cry. When I was across the street.
you failed us. But yeah, so he's no longer on. I think that's a smart move, to make the shift. Obviously, the Kelseys and their podcasts and their popularity, everyone wants a piece of Jason, and so makes a lot of sense to put him on the feed that I never get to watch because we're doing the show live during it. But I'm sure he'll be great. But Arun, we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Sure, thanks for having me on.
All right, Tim. We have an exciting announcement that we are going to be going to our. You've never, neither of you guys have ever gone to a well,
No,
UFL.
I went
You went to an
was
XFL
right
game last year, right?
no, it was like right before COVID.
Oh,
So
okay,
it was the first edition when it
nice,
was the Ohio State quarterback. Cardale was the quarterback.
nice. That's awesome. So this is, I mean, technically it's a new league, right? So it's the
Yeah,
UFL now.
UFL now.
But it's cool you've been to Audi Field. You can show us around. Because I've never been to Audi Field. Champ, you never been to Audi Field, right? Yeah.
I have not. I have not been to Alley Field.
So it's cool. It'll be a
Yeah,
new.
it's great. I think you're gonna like it. Still new experience.
That'll be awesome, and it's against Arlington, who's also a terrible team. And it'll be fun to root against, kind of like their version of the Cowboys, right? So, it'll be
Yeah, same town.
yeah,
Minor league
exactly.
Cowboys.
Exactly. So I do love that. I'm pulling up my tickets right now because I do want to announce the section that we're going to be in because there are some great deals in that section right now. That you can get $20 tickets or $16 tickets. But yeah, we're going to be in section 105, which is like the 40-yard line on the visitor side. But you can sit anywheres, and we'll definitely on the Facebook page do an announcement of like a meetup that we can do at halftime or something fun if anybody wants to meet up. So send me a message on either Facebook Messenger. My Instagram's the same name as it is on Twitch, RobbieG_SportsOTHP. It's probably the best way to do it. You can whisper me on Twitch, or you can whisper me or direct message me on Facebook as well. If you are going to go to the game, and we'll definitely make sure that we meet up with you guys. And it's exciting to announce that Carol is going to be joining us as well. So the 4 of us will do a podcast meetup. We might go live from the football game, or definitely get some recordings and video that we will show on that last podcast of the spring season in 2 weeks. So that should be a lot of fun. I'm excited to catch a game with you guys. I know it kind of sucks that it won't necessarily be like one to decide if they're going to make the playoffs or not. But I kind of think that low pressure is kind of better in some ways. We just go in and just have a fun time, and it's not like we're going in with any expectations of anything. But Tim, since you've been to an XFL game before, do you have any thoughts about going to this one?
The crowd is really fun. I remember the two things that I remember about the XFL game were we sat right next to a section of four dudes with four different Tebow jerseys, like four different teams, all sitting together in a group, and there was the beer snake. Where and so it was definitely a younger, kind of more party crowd than an NFL game. I mean, obviously people drink a ton at both, but it was just kind of a fun atmosphere, not more friendly than a lot of NFL games. No one's fighting. I mean, everyone's just having a good time, enjoying football, not quite as intense. And Audi Field's nice because it's not huge, so it's a good size for the crowd that they get. And yeah, it's just fun. You can get close up at the end of the games because they let you go down. So it was a good atmosphere, and I think it's a great stadium for it, just being new, and you get to kind of see all the DC United and Spirit decorations too that they have. So I think it's going to be a good time, and you can kind of see what DC United is building there. And yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun.
Speaking of the Spirit, they really showed up and showed out at Audi Field this past weekend against LA, scoring. It was a combined six goals scored in the first half of that game, with the Spirit scoring four of those, and it ended up being a 4-2 victory for the Spirit.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm happy
Nice.
that you knew that and they gave us
I
an update
watched
on
the
it.
game. I actually watched the game.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I have to get into the Spirit. What are they on? Do you know what network they're on, or how do you watch them?
Well, I think that the women's league has their own streaming service, but they also show games on Ion on the Ion channel. And Washington just happened to be on Ion this past weekend, and so Saturday I actually woke up way late. I actually woke up at like 4 p.m. on Saturday, so my whole day was absolutely out of just out of whack, and I ended up watching Ion, and it was the Washington Spirit against LA, and that first half was just absolutely electrifying between those two teams with the 6 goals in that first half, and the second half there were no goals, but Washington was up by 2, and they just basically cruised to victory. But it was a really those ladies are really 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 talented.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even realize that oh, and they play on Monumental Sports Network also. So the next game on the 24th is on Monumental. So yeah, I just saved that. So it's cool. And then there's another new league that was just announced. I think it's called the Washington Power.
Oh
Uh
yeah, I saw that headline. I didn't understand that though. I was like, I thought we had a soccer team already.
yeah,
Is
there's
it like a
another
second women's team, right?
second women's soccer league, and we have a player.
Out like is it like indoor or it's just like
No,
a
they're
is it
playing
like
in the
a
same. I think that they're also playing at Audi Field.
okay. So I just wonder what the tiers are. Like is it like a minor league for it or are they competing for the same players?
Yeah, I'm trying to find out the thing because now that I do Washington Power, it comes up with a different team. Super League, what is the name? DC Power. That's what it is. Because
Oh,
Washington Power is already a lacrosse team. I was like, wait,
okay. Utility company.
yeah, exactly. So DC Power. Um, Yeah, DC Power Football Club is slated to launch in August as a founding member of the USL Super League, an 8-team circuit that will compete with the well-established National Women's Soccer League. Interesting. They will share Audi Field with DC United and Washington Spirit and DC yeah, United Football Leagues, DC and Defenders. So yeah, like that's a lot of teams playing in there. So that's wild. But yeah, it's that's exciting. We'll cover all those teams. Why not, right? So we've covered lots of women's sports in the past, and so I'm excited that they're in it. I will mention real quickly, we won't get too far into it. But the Mystics unfortunately lost all three of their first games.
I was ready to talk about that too because I watched all the highlights of those games.
Oh yeah,
And
we could talk about it.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
tell you something. I'm okay. So the Mystics, those, even though they lost their first 3 games of the season, they were very competitive in all 3 of those games.
Hmm.
Very competitive, a lot of good shot making by the Mystics, but it's just that unfortunately it seems like they have the wizard syndrome and can't play defense.
Yeah.
That's been the issue, is that they can make the shots. I've seen them make like really deep 3-pointers and have some really good passes in the lane, inside in the lane, and make inside shots and stuff like that, but it's just defense has been the issue, and that's why they haven't been able to win yet. But they've been very competitive in those first 3 games, so it's not like the Mystics are out here just getting blown out and just looking like they can't play. They are out there balling. The problem is that they're just not playing defense and keeping themselves in and keep putting themselves in a position to win. That's the problem.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting, because they, as you said, they were in a lot of these games. I did get to see some of these highlights, and it's a tough league. People don't realize, like, just the team that just got the best player, right, and everyone's talking about, they've lost 4 in a row, right? So like, the Liberty are dominating. They've won 4 in a row. The Sun have won 3 out of 4. So the next game for the Mystics is actually tomorrow. They'll see if they can get off the snide. They're playing at Los Angeles. Then they go to at Los Angeles on Tuesday. It's a 10 o'clock game. And
They're on the west. It's the West Coast swing. It's L.A. on Tuesday. It's Phoenix on Thursday, and then Seattle on Saturday.
yeah,
And that's
exactly.
the team they just played on Friday and lost to by 9.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's so right now in the Eastern Conference, New York has 4 wins, Connecticut has 3, Atlanta and Chicago each have 1 win and 1 loss. We have Washington 0-3 and Indiana 0-4. In the Western Conference, you got Las Vegas, and who just seems like they're such an amazing tear, and they just got this incredible contract that there's this whole debate about, where they actually gave money to every single player, the team that's doing it. Hatred. Um, uh, and it's it'd be interesting to see if that deal goes through. They're able to give $100,000 to each player on the team, which actually is more money than they were making from the league. And the deal is they're not allowed to sponsor them playing the game. And the guy who said that they were giving them the money just says, "We're just doing it to just play the game." And so like there's now have to go through a whole conversation on whether or not it's legal. I hope it is, because these women deserve the support. They have an opportunity to three-peat. And it was Vegas, the city itself, that was paying for them because it was bringing a lot of tourism to them, and they were going to have them go and do different spots for them. Anyway, Las Vegas is up 2-0 or 1-2 and lost 0. Minnesota is also not lost yet, and Phoenix and Dallas are 1-1. Seattle's 1-3, and Los Angeles, the team we're playing, is 0-2 as well. So it's a little bit of the early WNBA standings for everybody there. Real quick, I do want to get Champ's thoughts on the Defenders and the big loss there. But Tim, do you have any? I'll let you go unless there's any other things that you would like to talk about tonight.
No, just good luck to Adrian. I mean, I don't think he needs it at this point, but I hope they pull it out. And
Thanks.
yeah, good luck, man. And I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks for having me on.
Good seeing you.
Have a good one.
You
All
too.
right.
Tim.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Tim. I appreciate it as always.